Hello and welcome to another Blues focused match preview where this time around we are set to face Lincoln City at St Andrews, and this is coming off the back of us losing our unbeaten run in the league. The 18-game streak is now over because we lost 3-1 against Bolton Wanderers at the Tough Sheet Community Stadium, and I feel like they were real value for their 3 points. They did play very well in the game, and the second half there was a real drop off in standard, wasn't there? And I feel like because of all the Tuesday, Saturdays and the injuries, I feel like it just caught up with us a little bit. And Chris Davies did say after the Wickham game, didn't he, that he's worried that the players might be getting slightly fatigued, and you can kind of see this in the performance levels and the fact that we do have a lot of our key players missing through injury. Obviously, the goalkeeper situation. You go onto social media and you do see a bit of an outburst targeted towards Bailey Peacock Farrell. And although Peacock Farrell was definitely at fault for the first goal, may have come off quicker in his line for the second goal, there was nothing really you could do about the third goal. And it's a shame, really, because we've been so solid at the back, only 4 goals conceded in that 18-game unbeaten league run, and Ryan Alsop was in goal for all of them games. So it's a tricky situation. And also up front, I feel like a couple of those forward players have been out of form, such as Alfie May. He's been on a bit of a goal drought, hasn't he? And Willem Willemsen hasn't quite looked the same since he's come back from his injury. So I'm really hoping those guys pick up in form for this Lincoln game. And Lincoln are a team that have been a bit of a mixed bag this season, hence why they're 12th place and they're 12 points off the top six and 13 points away from relegation. So you'd have to say that, mid-table is going to be their destiny for this season. And in terms of finding out more information about Lincoln City, we spoke to Gary from the Stacey West Blog to get more about them. And we're kind of doing this new style from now till the end of the season. So I really hope you enjoy this new format as I enjoyed it. And let's hear what Gary has to say in the live chat before I give my final score prediction, which is going to be a 2-1 victory for Birmingham City. I'm not too confident about the clean sheet, but I'm really hoping we can pull through, show our character, and then go on another unbeaten run from now until the end of the season. So I'm going to say 2-1 Blues. Still optimistic, still positive about the boys. Hopefully we can extend our league at the top of League One back to what it was before the Bolton game. And now let's hear from Gary. So here for the Lincoln City preview, we have got Gary from the Stacey West Blog. How are you doing, Gary?
Doing really well, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. And before I like to speak to, different opposition fans, I do a bit of research into what's been happening this season and the current situation. And I looked at the last 5 games, and there's a lot of goals scored for Lincoln, but not a whole lot of wins because it's been 2 wins in the last 5 games. And you've had a lot of like thrilling games. Obviously, you had the 4-3 thriller against Barnsley alongside other big scorelines as well, such as Crawley Town, where you won by a lot of that goals of the game as well. So in terms of the season so far for you guys, because you sit 12th place at the moment, and it looks like you might be a bit too far off the playoffs, but then you're also very clear of relegation. So in terms of, the last 5 games and how the season's gone far, how would you evaluate it?
Um, it's really hard to evaluate, to be honest. I get accused of having rose-tinted glasses, and I think Lincoln City being in a division like League One, we're 19th in the budget table. We're 12th in the actual table. +7 is a huge achievement. In the industry, it tends to be +5 is really good. But last season we finished 7th and we missed out on the playoffs on the last day of the season, and there was a big expectation that we were going to be able to mount a promotion challenge this season. But obviously, I'm not looking for excuses. But when the likes of yourselves and Huddersfield come down, what did Huddersfield spend in the transfer window? 3-4 million. I mean, you guys were spending money like a championship side, and that's not. I'm not jealous. I'm not critical. Rightly so. You're a big club. Wrexham coming up with the money, Stockport coming up. It was always going to be really difficult. We started really well and we put some good results together. It's been difficult, if I'm honest, through November. From November onwards, we've shown such inconsistent form. We thrashed Peterborough 5-1, biggest win against Peterborough we've ever had, who were kind of like a rival. They're not a local rival, but we despise them. We won 3-0 at Mansfield, biggest win ever at Field Mill. They are a local rival as the crow flies. And like you say, we concede so many goals. I mean, Leighton Orient, they were on flying. We went and scored 2 at Brisbane Road. You should win. If you go and score 2 at Brisbane Road, you should win. But we conceded 3 and we gifted every single one. If we consolidate this season, if we can finish in 12th, I think that's a decent achievement for a club our size. But I don't speak for all Lincoln City supporters on that front, I'm afraid.
We'll make sure to beat Peterborough in the Virtue Trophy final when we play them in April, seeing as they're your
Yes, please.
rivals.
Yes, please.
And regarding like the away form, you touched on it a bit there about the Leyton Orient game, and I feel like there's a bit of a catalogue of games this season because it's only 2 wins in the last 14 league away games for Lincoln. So I think you've struggled quite a bit on the road. What would you exactly put that down to?
Do you know what? I don't know. And what's really frustrating is we went away to Crawley early on in the season, and I think we were on a record-breaking run of avoiding defeats away, something like 17 or 18 games. Um, I just don't understand it at the moment because we were so solid, and we went to Crawley. We gifted them a load of goals. This was the before the FA Cup. We beat them in the FA Cup. This was in the league. Gifted them a load of goals. I mean, we seem to do that against Crawley every time we play them. I think they scored three against us in the FA Cup, three in the league. They scored one again the other night. Honestly, um, but I really don't know because I feel that we have a relatively young squad, and one or two of our younger players tend to struggle at home because as soon as there's a misplaced pass or something like that, you get the oh, there we go again. And one person sighing is fine, but when you get three or four hundred sighing, even in a crowd of 5,000 along one stand, it's quite loud. So I would have thought, if anything, we would have more confidence when we go away because there's fewer fans. A lot of the teams put you, certainly teams like Reading, etc., put you right up in an upper thing. Barnsley did the same. Stick them out the way, nobody will hear them up there, kind of thing. So it's really hard to put my finger on. I think there's some really good teams in terms of home performances in this division. You look at the likes of Wrexham. Wrexham are an average side. I have seen obviously every team this season. I watch games that don't involve Lincoln. Wrexham wouldn't make my top 6 or 7 teams in this division, but they know how to perform at home. Leyton Orient are a really good side. They know how to perform at home. There's a lot of teams who are really, really good on their own patch. And then there's the differences between the size of the clubs you go to. So you go to Crawley, small, quite tight. Shrewsbury, small, quite tight, real lower league feeling games. You're there one week, the next week you're at St Andrews or you're at the McAlpine. You're at big stadiums, Oakwell, stadiums that have hosted Premier League football. And I just wonder maybe if that kind of helps with I say helps, but drives the inconsistency a little bit. But it's a great league. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd rather have that than go to Shrewsbury and Crawley every week. Bromley, Harrogate. No, thank you. No.
And in terms of the coaching setup at Lincoln, you've got Michael Skubala as your manager now, and I kind of put him in the Chris Davies bracket where he's worked behind the scenes at some big clubs, and now he's kind of got the main man role. So in terms of Skubala's tenure, how would you evaluate it?
Um, this is going to be controversial. If there's Lincoln fans watching this, they will groan as soon as I say it. But I think it's been really good. Our form isn't great at the moment, granted, but Michael Scabala is a good coach. I've been fortunate enough to meet him on a few occasions. He's a really good man. He's really down to earth. I think he took over a Lincoln side that the fans felt a little bit fractured. Mark Kennedy's reign divided fans. Michael Appleton's reign divided fans. Unfortunately, Michael Scabala's reign is now dividing fans. But up until May, that wasn't the case. We lost on the final game of the season to Portsmouth, and when Portsmouth scored their second goal, all of Sincil Bank stood up and applauded the effort that we had had to get into the playoffs because we'd been 12 points shy in January, and we made that up, got into the play. It was a great effort. I think this season has been a little bit more divisive, but I think as a coach, Michael actually does the right things. I'm a big fan of stats. I love XG. I love touches in the box, shots, expected goals against, and actually the metrics all point to us being much better than we are. You look at the XG table, and up until a couple of weeks ago, we should have been sixth. I know it's on goals scored. I get that. You look at XG conceded, and shots conceded. We were top six for the fewest shots conceded. So what we're actually doing between the two boxes is good. But it's when we get in those moments, we're letting in stupid goals we shouldn't let in. We're gifting the opposition goals, or we're missing gilt-edged chances. And I can think of that. We went away to Wrexham, we lost 1-0. We should have won that game 2-0. Their goal came off Tendai Dariko's backside for an own goal. We missed an absolute sitter. We should have beat Stevenage just after Christmas. We should have beaten Leyton Orient. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I get that. But I think that we are just a little bit of quality away from being a top six side. And quality is what money buys you.
Because as you mentioned, last season you were on that phenomenal run, didn't you, to really like push it for those playoff places. And when Blues have come up against Lincoln this season, I've been impressed by you guys. And as you said, it's the small fractions, isn't it? Because I remember when we played you at your place where Ryan Allsop made that penalty save, and if your guy scores the penalty, then it's a different game altogether. And the FA Cup game as well, where you were literally a fraction away from equalising towards the end. So as you said, it is just those fine margins. And what do you make of those two games so far that you played against Birmingham this season?
I'm not. It sounds really kind of sycophantic because I've come on your podcast. But when you play Birmingham City, you know you're playing a team that you're only going to get to play once in the next 10, 15 years, unless we're really lucky and get promoted. Uh, you were streets ahead of anybody that we've met in League One at any point during our tenure here. And bear in mind that includes Sunderland and Derby and Portsmouth. There's been some big clubs, Ipswich, who are obviously now in the Premier League. But at our place, I thought we played really well, and I thought we probably could have got something, but it was just those moments of absolute quality. I mean, the boy Williamson, I absolutely love him. What a player! I can't think of the two holding midfielders. They were just a
Taking a
class
Water.
above. Yeah, yeah, just sitting there thinking, "Yeah, we can't compete. We can't possibly compete." And I remember coming away from that. We lost 3-1, being so happy. We've taken the early lead. If we'd scored that penalty, and again, it's if buts, maybes, isn't it? I mean, Williamson's goals, if I remember, both of them were struck, from outside the area, but absolute quality. The FA Cup game. Do you know what? I actually felt because obviously it was more or less a reserve team for you, a reserve team with, an international striker up top and international defenders in. I mean, it's when I say it's a bit of a joke, I don't mean that jealous again. It's just like when the FA Cup draw came out, people saying, "Oh, that's a rubbish draw. It's a rubbish draw," and it's only a rubbish draw because you're in our league. If we drew Birmingham City away in the third round of the FA Cup and you were in the Championship, it's like, "Oh, we're going to a big ground. We're going to see all these great players. These good players." Yeah, two games against you. You deserve to win both of them. You'll win on Saturday as well. You'll go up as champions. You'll win the Virtua Trophy, just like 1995 when you won the third division and won the Auto Windscreen Shield as well. And in 10 years' time, I'll be able to tell, I don't have kids, but I'll be able to tell someone else's kids, I remember when we used to play Birmingham City. So that's where I'm on that.
Some good knowledge there about the auto windscreens. Very
Yeah, there
impressive.
you go, you see.
And like for the danger men to look out for Lincoln, you say there that you reckon we're going to win on the weekend, and I think what we've learned this season from League One about a couple of games, it's not a foregone conclusion because you look at games this season that Blues have played, such as Shrewsbury, where we thought we were going to win that one and we lost, and then Bolton, the last game that we played, obviously 18 game unbeaten streak in the league come to an end. So you never really know in League One. And in terms of like the danger men for Lincoln, who would you say is the people to look out for?
It really depends on who we pick. We've got this issue at the moment where we've got a couple of players that only really play. They start on a Saturday, they miss the Tuesday, or they start the Tuesday, they miss the Saturday. James Collins is the obvious one because he is a player who has got that quality from the Championship. He was a big capture for us. I know he's 34, 35, whatever he is now, but he's just added that quality up top. I think he's got something like 4 goals in 5 starts for us. He scored against Crawley the other night. He really drives standards. Paddy O'Connor will be back. Now he's a defender that thrives on big balls. It's like a Carl Piergiani at Stevenage. He'll head them away and all
Wins
that
a lot
sort
of
of thing.
headers.
Having
That's what I know about statistics.
superb aerially and a real danger at corners as well. So to have him back is going to be pretty important. Ethan Arahan's missing. That's a real blow. But Sam Lucas has made a little bit of an impact since he's come in. Again, you're talking 34-year-old. It's like Dad's Army. 3 years ago, we were signing 18, 19-year-olds. Now we're signing Tendai Deriku, who's 32, Sam Lucas, James Collins. The one wild card is Joe Gardner. Now, he came on loan from Forest. He came on for his debut and was sent off 6 minutes later for a challenge that was never a red card. We appealed it. It got upheld, unfortunately. But he came on for half an hour on Tuesday night. He was outstanding. He scored a great goal. We're not allowed to compare him to another loanee that we had, Brennan Johnson, who's obviously now at Spurs. So we won't. But he does play an awful lot like this former loanee that we had who now plays for Spurs. He gets his head down. He wants to beat players. He won't start, but he gives us pace and energy in the last 30 minutes. And I think that's one thing that we do have the ability to do from the bench is make significant changes that will impact the side in the final 30 minutes. But yeah, in terms of danger men, it's got to be James Collins and it's got to be Paddy O'Connor.
Yeah, Collins, very experienced championship striker, and we've come up against him a few times, so it's a familiar face. And one person that I also wanted to ask about as well is Zach Geacock in goal for you, because he's a former Birmingham Academy player, played a few games for us in goal, but never really got a run in the team, and now he finds himself at Lincoln City. So how's he done in a Lincoln shirt?
Yeah, Zach's had a real interesting journey because we loaned him out to Southend, I think it was. He was benched by them. I think he was sent off in his first game. That was overturned. He was then benched by them. Our keeper, George Wickens, then got injured, so we recalled Zach. He made a howler in the Virtua Trophy against Bolton, and they won 1-0. but then he was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. Made lots of good saves. He kept George Wickens out of the side, and then Leighton Orient he made an error. And he made an error against Barnsley as well. He was actually dropped on Tuesday night. George Wickens came in. Wickens then made an error. So he's a big question mark. What I would say is I think that Zach came in as a project goalkeeper. And I don't particularly like that label because I think it's disrespectful. But we signed two keepers, sorry, Jamie Pardington and Zach Geacock. I think the intent was once Geacock goes out on loan, Pardington covers. Then next season, Geacock comes in, covers, Pardington goes out on loan. But actually, when he got a run in the team, he commands his area very well. His distribution's very good. So at the minute, there is only like a really small margin between him and George Wickens, and Wickens is a player we signed for a six-figure sum from Fulham. So I think that's testament to how well he has applied himself rather over the last few weeks.
We've got a bit of a conundrum at the moment with goalkeepers because Ryan Allsop came off injured in the Wickham game, and now we've got Bailey Peacock fouling goal. And there was a couple of shots in that Bolton game where you're thinking that Allsop might have saved it. And as you said, it's that thing, isn't it, where, you know, if another keeper comes in and they just drop a howler on their first game, then you're immediately then going back to the other goalkeeper that you had. And I remember like
Yeah.
Geacock in that game against you guys where Jukovic had a header and then Geacock saved it really well. So as you said, like I feel like he is a good shot stopper, but I remember him playing for Blues at a time where morale just wasn't very good around the place. And I think he started in goal when we lost to Blackpool 6-1 at Blackpool. And I just remember that day thinking like, things can't really get much worse than that. But if he's getting regular minutes at Lincoln, then that's good to see.
Yeah, definitely. And a word on Ryan Allsop as well. So he's actually a former Imp. He came on loan from Bournemouth in the 2017-18 season, and there's a kind of we say Virtua Trophy, I call it the Mickey Mouse Trophy. He actually made his debut in the semi-final of the Checkatrade Trophy against Chelsea. Saved a penalty in the shootout to actually send us to Wembley. So I'm hoping that he does come back for you, not this weekend, because I followed Bailey Peacock Farrell. He was the former Leeds youngster, wasn't he, who stepped up
Yes,
at Leeds.
yes.
He's always had an error in him, if I remember correctly. So I'm actually quite pleased that Ryan Allsop's out. But it was written in the stars he was going to save Rico Hackett's penalty. I remember as soon as we got that penalty in the first game, everyone's going like, "Oh yeah, we've got a penalty," and he's like, "No, Ryan Allsop will save it," because yeah, that's football does that, doesn't it? It comes full circle. You know, it's a football is a game packed full of ironies and stories. So
That's not the only penalty he's saved this season as well. So yeah, he's good at that, but we won't have him for Saturday. And obviously, with everything that you've said, what are you going to say for a score prediction?
I can't predict anything other than a Birmingham win. I'd like to think that we'll come and give a good account of ourselves. Looking generally at our goals scored and goals against, I'm going to say it will probably be 5-3 to Birmingham. Just that's the Lincoln City way at the minute.
Well, 5-3, yeah, that sounds like Jack's prediction on the vlog whenever he goes to the games with Tommy. It's always like an out there prediction. So yeah, 5-3 might be in his radius. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Gary. And also, finally, before you leave, where can we find your social media sites? And if we be like, uploading anything before the game, after the game, what can we see on your front?
Yep. So the site is stacey.west.net. We will have a podcast going up after the game. We normally do an opposition reaction piece as well. Everything goes on stacey.west.net, but we do have a YouTube channel. I couldn't tell you what it is, to be honest. No idea. Twitter handle, I think, is Stacey West Blog. Maybe I'm really crap at self-promotion. So
Well, we'll make sure to post all your social medias out there so people can follow you. Thank you so much for your time,
cheers.
Gary. And as usual, we'll have a vlog going out on the weekend for the game, and hopefully our unbeaten streak in the league can continue at home. But you never know with Lincoln because they've played us already at home this season. There may be a banana skin, but yeah, hopefully we can extend our lead at the top of League One. So thank you so much for your time, Gary, and keep right on.